Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to today's live video. Today we're going through the meaning of Mercury in all signs of the zodiac. So this is a video for you if you want to know what Mercury in your natal chart means. So in order to get value out of this video, you need to know what sign your Mercury is in. And that's not the transiting Mercury, but the Mercury in your chart. So I'm going through all 12 signs of the zodiac, what they mean based on where your Mercury is. So if you're jumping on live, say hey. If you are watching the replay, just know that everything that we're covering today is going to be just as valid if you are catching the replay. Also, if you like videos like this, planets in signs or planets in houses, I have lots and lots of videos on the channel with planets through signs, Venus, Mars. I have, what else do I have? There's a series of Venus, there's a series of Mars, there's planets in the houses, a series of videos. There is a whole playlist of planets in houses. There's Lilith through the signs, Pluto through the houses, and the North Node through the signs, and the North Node through the houses. So there's tons and tons and tons of bingeable content here for you. Also, I'm going to be doing some more of these. So today we're doing Mercury through the signs. I expect in the near future to be doing Mercury through the houses, and then I will also be doing the moon through the signs, which I had in the past, but I deleted those videos at one point because they were not good. They were not good. So we're going to redo those, and they're going to be actually good this time. No, they were just from when I was first starting. And so I have been wanting to redo those for some time now. So those are some upcoming things you can look forward to on the channel. And like I said, today we're going to go through Mercury through all 12 signs of the zodiac. So before we do this, let's talk about what Mercury really means. Now, a lot of you probably have heard Mercury rules speech and communication, but I think that there's a little bit more to our Mercury sign if we really kind of dig in a little bit. Because Mercury rules a lot of other things in astrology besides just how you speak and how you think. Now, Mercury by sign is going to tell you that, but I think one misconception is that your Mercury sign doesn't tell us how smart you are. So just because someone, for example, has Mercury in an air sign, right? Let's say they have Mercury in Gemini where it's like at home. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to be intelligent and like really, really smart. It might mean they're more stuck in their head. Do you know what I mean? Like, have you met someone who is so intellectual that they don't get things? That would be an example of Mercury in an air sign that doesn't always translate as intelligence. So that's one thing to know. And that also means that if you have Mercury in a more challenging sign, like Sagittarius or Pisces, that does not mean you are dumb. If you have Mercury in Taurus, it doesn't mean you're stupid, just because it's a slower moving sign. So I want to dispel any potential misconceptions here. We're not talking about how smart or dumb you are. We're talking about when you think and when you speak, how do you do it? How do you learn? How do you make plans? Okay, so going with the first sign first, we're going to start with Mercury in Aries. And I do have some notes that I wrote here. All right, so Mercury in Aries can be, when planets are in the sign of Aries, they tend to sort of kind of like a spark. They'll have this like passionate fire, and then they will burn out a little bit, right? So how that might show up for Mercury here is that you might start a conversation and then not want to finish it. You may start conversations. You may be good at starting the conversation. You may not be as good at keeping it going or ending it. That is one potential. Now, or you could be great at ending it, because Mercury in Aries can tend to be more abrupt. It can tend to be a little bit more cutting, because that fire sign, that cardinal fire, is just like, it's quick, but it's not necessarily like a long-lasting type of a sign. Now, for example, when you learn something with Mercury in Aries, you might be really excited about learning it and then burn out quickly. You could possibly be the first one to participate. You might be the first one to jump in. You might even cuss more or use like violent imagery more when you have Mercury in Aries. You might just, when you're talking in regular speech, you might, just be like, oh yeah, it's like a bomb went off in there, kind of just more of an exciting, more, again, like kind of violent way of speaking, but not like you are violent necessarily as much as you're just going to talk like that. Maybe you're going to say things that are unpleasant. Maybe you're not afraid to be honest with Mercury in Aries, because Aries just wants to get to the point. Now, you might like when you're talking about stuff. Someone with Mercury in Aries might ask you, like, what are you up to? What are you doing? What'd you do today? They might talk about what they did, or they might like to talk about exciting things, like a fight that just happened, or like, in my notes, I wrote daredevil stunts. I don't know if I read that somewhere or I just was thinking that. Like, did you see that cool bike go over that hill and flip? I think of that with like Mercury and Aries. It doesn't mean you're going to do that specifically. It depends on what you're into, but you just might enjoy talking about active things, passionate things, sports, things that are energizing, things that are in motion, things that are happening right now. Sometimes with Mercury in Aries, you might be speaking to accomplish something, where it's like you want to make something happen, and that's the whole point of the conversation. Sometimes Mercury in Aries isn't going to be as like, I don't know, flowy in conversation. Like, how do I put it? It's not like you're going to just sit there and talk to someone forever. You don't usually, with Mercury and Aries, Mercury in fire signs doesn't always have the patience. It can be developed, but if you have your preference, Mercury in Aries, you'd rather just get the answer to your question, not listen to someone ramble forever. The best case scenario for Mercury in Aries would be to like motivate people with your ideas. And the worst case scenario is like being rude, cutting everyone off, or trying to win every conversation. Because Aries wants to like, it doesn't just want to go first. It wants to like it always wants to be in motion, be accomplishing something, be on a ride, be on an adventure, be on a thrill. And there's also this sort of instinctual nature with Aries that gets a bit of a bad rap. People with Aries placements get a bit of a bad rap because they'll think first, talk first, ask questions later. They'll say the thing they were thinking. The Mercury in Aries could blurt things out. Hold on. Okay. So Mercury and Aries can blurt things out. They can just sort of feel that pressure to say something. Now, Aries is also going to be how you plan something, how you do something. You might come up with answers really fast. You might not care as much if you did it right, as much as that you get something going, like get some ideas going. That would be what I would think for this sign. Okay, so let's go on now to Mercury in Taurus. For Mercury in Taurus, usually this is going to be communicating in a more steady way. Mercury in Taurus is said to learn more slowly, but they're also said to retain the information better, to understand it better long term, because they're going to take it in. Taurus is going to be the slowest sign, right? Because it's fixed to earth. It's like a mountain. It's not like Mercury doesn't really, I don't want to say make sense here because Mercury makes sense everywhere, but Mercury's need for speed and agility and to like flip back and forth, it doesn't really get met in Taurus. So that's not necessarily bad, but sometimes Mercury in Taurus isn't going to be as like happy to debate you like Mercury in Aries would be. They might actually not want to have to deal with information that challenges their current way of thinking. They can have the patience to listen though. So this is one of the beautiful things about Mercury and Taurus is that Taurus slows Mercury down. Mercury can be a little too fast, right? It's like the flipping back and forth, the messenger of the gods, right? The running around to different places, this sort of back and forth, never in one spot energy that Mercury just has. It doesn't do that in Taurus. So this is really good for listening. This is really good for being grounding, saying things that are soothing or grounding to other people, having a slower pace. Just thinking about this placement, I'm like, I feel so relaxed thinking about how this would work. Now, someone with Mercury and Taurus might really like talking about things that involve Taurus type stuff, like how good the food tastes or how the music sounds. You know, they might be asking you about your favorite things. They could also ask you what you're doing, but they might talk about Taurus stuff. They might talk about how good something felt and how nice the massage was, or again, how much they love their favorite food, or how the music sounds, or just listening to the music, or wanting to spend more of their time kind of enjoying what they're hearing, or enjoying the sensuality of life in a certain way. Now, when Mercury and Taurus speaks, they're usually talking to share some kind of practical information. This is common for earth signs to feel like they want to say things that are useful or are important or are tangible. It's not like a Mercury and Taurus can't dream or be inspired, but you're going to just hear them like they're not going to take you off onto a spaceship, when you're talking. They're going to just be right here, right now. And this is a really good thing to have with Mercury, because it's like Mercury's tendency to be too much sometimes is really tempered by that earth that really slows it down. Now, sometimes with learning or with doing assignments, Mercury and Taurus may stall. They may they may not be confident. This is what I'm getting at. Mercury and Taurus probably isn't going to say anything unless they are confident that it is the right thing, because that fixed nature of Taurus will make it so they don't really want to change their mind. They want to gather all the information, Taurus being a feminine sign. So they're going to gather all this information, and then they're going to get an opinion, and they're not going to want to change that opinion. So this can actually be a challenge sometimes, because Mercury and Taurus could possibly feel like, I don't want to say the answer because I'm not sure if it's right, kind of a thing. And I think of people who have a hard time taken tests for this reason, where it's like they don't want to give you an answer until they are sure. Sometimes Mercury and Taurus can be good singers, and they can have a pleasing voice. Taurus rules the vocal cords, so there can be something special about the voice as well. And, you know, the best case scenario for Mercury and Taurus is going to be this grounding, calming influence you can have on other people through your words. The worst case would be your ideas are like mountains. They are fixed. They are not going anywhere. So that, of course, that can always be worked with. But let's go on now to our next sign, which is going to be Mercury in Gemini. So Mercury in Gemini, now this is the sign, there's two signs that Mercury rules. One is Gemini and one is Virgo. And hold on. I always forget. I think it's exalted in Virgo. Yes. Okay, so it rules Virgo and is exalted in Virgo, but it rules Gemini, which means Mercury is very at home in Gemini. It can do Mercury stuff. So when you're thinking of the rulerships, if you don't know these very well, that's fine. But don't think of it as this planet is good here and it's bad here. I mean, there's some ways that is true, but what it really means is that Mercury in Gemini can do Mercury stuff really well. Okay, so what is Mercury stuff? Multitasking, focusing on facts, writing in a technical way, writing in a very specific, detailed, and precise way, having dexterity, being good with your hands. Gemini rules the hands. But this can also be too much. Just because the planet is in the sign of its rulership doesn't mean those who have it are like better people necessarily. Okay, so I think that's kind of a myth that we have. Yeah, I think that's kind of a myth. So going on now to what Mercury in Gemini means. Someone with Mercury in Gemini is likely to focus on the facts. They will tell you the latest news. They can talk about Gemini stuff, which is like their favorite sandwich shop, or like sometimes they'll tell you how to get places. They'll tell you the best route. They'll tell you about the latest gossip. Sometimes they'll be telling you about technical things. They want to tell you how things work, or they want to explain how things work, or they want to, again, really focus on the facts. This is fine, except for the fact that most people don't always like that, right? So I would say Mercury in Gemini has the potential of kind of hurting people's feelings sometimes because they're more concerned with accuracy than with feelings. So if someone is like saying, oh, it doesn't really matter that much because it's something that would be like personal to them, and the Mercury in Gemini is like, well, technically it actually does. And you're just like, oh my God, stop. Like that. Sometimes it's like that. Okay. So Mercury in Gemini, let me know if you relate to what I'm saying. Sometimes they're insanely good at multitasking. They'll tend to have a quick mind, but they'll get bored really fast. This is someone who might enjoy crossword puzzles or word games, or just feel like they always need mental stimulation. They usually, if they like you, they'll tell you how to do stuff. They'll share like a technique, or they'll tell you like, okay, so hold on, you guys. I'm just going to block someone who's bothering me. I don't know why that didn't work very well. Okay, so back to Mercury and Gemini. Yeah, so they'll share a trick or a technique or a hack of how to do things like in a clever way, or how to, like, they'll teach you how to pick a lock, or they'll teach you how to finagle something. You know what I mean? Like, they'll teach you how to work the system. They'll teach you how to be tricky or sneaky, or, like, do things like that, right? Because Mercury is a trickster and definitely knows how to fool people. And it's kind of, this doesn't mean that any particular Mercury are less honest, but Mercury does rule lying because Hermes lied his ass off. And it's just that kind of shape shifting. I'll be whoever you want me to be in this moment to get what I want. I'll talk a dog off a meat wagon kind of energy. So also people with strong and good Mercuries can sell, because Mercury rules commerce. It rules selling. So sometimes this can be good for that. It can also be good for teaching, because when I think of Gemini especially, I think of the ability to get in someone's head, right? Because that's how you lie to people. It's how you steal, and it's how you, it's also how you teach, is to get in someone's head. So strong Mercuries know how to get in people's heads. Now, what you do with that is up to you. Hopefully use that for good. But Mercury in Gemini is speaking to inform. And, this is another one that I can imagine someone with this placement would be the type of person who goes to a social event and tells every single person the same thing. Like for me, if I have a conversation, it's going to be more intuitive. Like, I'm not going to go to an event and be like, oh, I do this, this, and this, and have like some same thing I tell every single person. Every conversation is going to be totally unique based on the energy. Mercury in Gemini is going to be more, like what they have to say is what they have to say. And it's going in all directions. So saying the same thing to a bunch of people at once. This is like podcaster energy, because it's that microphone that is going to be that information you're going to disperse everywhere. It's like weatherman energy too, because you're just reporting facts. There's no meaning behind it. It's not the meaning of the universe. It's what is happening. Traffic, weather, things that people report on are Mercury. So then the best case scenario for Mercury and Gemini is they can be a resource for all the facts on a topic. The worst case scenario would be a chatterbox who can't stop talking about a bunch of little things. And you're like walking away and they're still talking. All right, going on now though, to Mercury in Cancer. So for Mercury in Cancer, when Mercury's in water signs, okay, the person cares more about feelings than they do about facts. And so they're going to speak in a way that they want to make sure that the other person, like how the other person feels, is factored in when they're speaking. This can be a great asset, because Mercury in Cancer can really say things that are so nurturing and can really have that energy of making you feel okay. Like that. So they're going to care more about feelings when they're talking, which means, and this can piss off the air signs too, because especially Mercury in Cancer or Pisces, they're speaking from how they feel in the moment. Okay, and there's other people who speak from their feelings who maybe don't have Mercury in water signs, but this is going to piss off the air signs and the earth signs, because the air signs and the earth signs want to know the facts. They want to know what's happening in the real world. And it's almost like, okay, Mercury in Cancer, it's almost like your boss comes down and talks to you. And they're like, how's everything going? And the Mercury in Cancer is like, ugh, I'm so tired today. It's like your boss didn't want to know how you felt. They wanted to know what was going on with the business. You know what I mean? So like Mercury in Cancer can have that, even though it can be an asset, because they can be very nurturing and they can be very good at keeping people together. And that Cancer energy is really needed to like keep groups of people together and to make people feel safe and everything. But they care more about feelings than accuracy when speaking. They will talk about what they ate. They will ask you if you ate. They will ask you about your home. They will talk about things related to home or family, or they'll ask you how you feel, or they'll talk about how they feel. Mercury in Cancer is speaking to connect. They are not speaking to inform, which means they are not always the best source of information, but they're nice. Maybe they can be, they can be, or they can also not be, but they're going to be the one who you just like having around, kind of a thing. It's more like that for Mercury in Cancer. They will talk about your mood or their mood, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon is the mood. It's temporary. It's fleeting. It's here one moment, it's gone the next. They might talk about also who's healthy, who's sick, who got better, stuff like that. Mercury in Cancer tend to have very good memories. Okay, so they will remember things. And I think also I remember this placement being one where they might collect things. Mercury in Cancer sometimes can be quite sentimental in how they think. And so they might have little knickknacks all over. They might collect things. They might, be more nostalgic in general. And they don't usually speak directly, right? Think about the crab walking sideways. This is a very, very good skill to have, to be able to sidestep things. I think of all Mercury and Cancer do not have to be waiters, but I think of a waiter. I think of a really good waiter at a restaurant. They just make you feel good. And if someone is if a customer is the most obnoxious person in the world, they still just usually make them feel good anyway, so they have that ability to kind of sidestep conflict and to deal with things in an indirect way that can be a very good gift, when you need to build relationships or keep and maintain relationships, or if you're in a job where you need to make people happy. Mercury and Cancer can be very good at this, because they can just not make conflict worse. They can kind of go around it. Now, this can be challenging when you need someone to be really direct and honest and confronting. Mercury in Cancer probably isn't going to want to confront people. They're probably not going to like that. So this is kind of like someone you have in HR who kind of makes everyone feel okay, but isn't the person you want to fire people, because they won't do it. Or they'll sidestep so much that it's the thing that needed to be said never got said, because they didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Mercury in Cancer usually doesn't like to hurt people's feelings. Same with Mercury in Pisces. But they could have a really nice, enjoyable conversation. Yeah, and then, it's I also think of someone who calls you up and you have the best conversation ever, and then at the very end they need something from you, and it's they're not gonna be hey, what are you doing? Can you help me with this thing? They're gonna be oh, hey, how are you? Da, 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 da. This is going, and it's okay, can we get to the point? But at the same time, it's kind of lovely at the same time. So again, not always the best for that direct, clear, concise, cutting conversation, because this Mercury is ruled by the moon. And so also Mercury in Cancer can be kind of moody with how they speak, or how they talk might depend on what mood they're in. And that could just be a strong influence in their communication. Is when they're in the good mood, you're going to get the good stories. When they're in the bad mood, you're going to get the bad mood. They're not going to be as consistent really in their conversation, or it'll be like the moon, where it the conversation sort of waxes and wanes, and it builds up and it goes down. That's another thing about that. So let's go on now to our next one, which is Mercury in Leo. I love Mercury in Leo. If I had to pick a favorite, this isn't mine, but it is probably my favorite one. The reason I love Mercury in Leo is because they're such enthusiastic speakers. This doesn't mean they're always genuine, But Mercury in Leo tends to infuse a lot of passion and energy into their speech. And because they're ruled by the sun, rather than like, there's three, right? There's three fire signs. There's Aries, Leo, and Sag. Now, the Aries Mercury is going to be more, it's passionate, but it's to the point, and it can be a little pushy. Now, the one ruled by Jupiter, Sag, that's going to be a little bit more all over the place. It's more like taking you on a long ass story, and they're going to be passionate, but they might be passionate about like stuff that they are really, it could be too much, you know, with that preachy energy we get with Jupiter and Sagittarius. But we have Leo, which is like right, it's like just right between the two, because Leo is ruled by the sun. And so when Mercury is in the sign of the sun, we get a person who wants to remind you that the sun's going to come up again. We get a person who wants to show up and lift you up and, you know, make you see a brighter day. Does every single Mercury in Leo do this in every situation? Maybe not always, right? And it's also going to depend on where their moon is and where other stuff is. But Mercury in Leo can really infuse a lot of passion and fun into their speech and their writing. These tend to be oftentimes quite good writers if they want to write. The way they talk can be exciting or fun. Like they'll use all the latest, like, you know, lingo, or they'll just want you to be happy. They'll want you to be happy. They're usually confident speakers, Mercury and Leo, and there is a consistency as well because Leo is a fixed sign. So not only are they confident speakers, but you're usually going to get the same kind of energy from them, if that makes sense. Like, even if they're not feeling good, it's like the way they talk is going to be consistently almost always the same way, if that makes sense. There's a feeling of like, if this is functioning well with Mercury and Leo, there's a feeling of like you can depend on what they're telling you, because the sun is giving life to everything, right? The sun is like the source of life for everything. So when Mercury is in the sign of the sun, this person, their words can be like in the highest expression of this, their words can become like the source of love and light for everyone. But you can burn people too, because that fire can be too hot. So it doesn't mean you can't get mad or anything like that. Mercury and Leo tend to talk in a way that reflects their pride in themselves. So this can be, in the worst case scenario, they'll brag. They'll be bragging about stuff. They'll be telling you how great they are. They'll be telling you what a good job they had in the past, or like, you know, they'll just sort of be kind of braggy sometimes. Now, this is going to depend on where Mercury is. So if it's like in the 12th house or the 4th house or even the 7th, it might not be quite so intense. It might be a little bit more tempered. And, you know, there can be other things that change the energy with aspects and stuff. But this is someone who generally will talk about what they've accomplished, or again, they want to talk in a way that they feel other people are going to be proud of them. So they're not going to be all like admitting defeat. Okay, and this is one of my issues with this placement with certain people in the past, which I know it's not about me, but sometimes I'll straight up lie to save face. Sometimes the things that they're saying, if this is out of balance, or maybe they have a bunch of other planets in Leo or something, they'll straight up lie to you to make themselves look better. They will have, you know, it's like their partner will have a business and they'll say it's our business, and it's not their business, right? They'll try to make themselves look better because they do not want to look bad. And that is just a Leo thing. But they also sometimes, again, will still like bring you up and want to, you know, help you and stuff. Oh, and okay, I gave a little example here. Like, let's say someone's a parent and they, you know, they told their kid they could pick whatever college they wanted. This is the parent who says that in a way that it makes them look good. They're like, we told them they could pick whatever college. Like they're God's gift to the fucking planet. I'm sorry, Mercury and Leo. I don't hate you guys. But it's like, just for being a decent person. So they'll sort of like speak in a way that sort of like shows how proud of themselves they are. That's kind of what I mean by that. Okay. And then they can talk about themselves. This is great though if you need to talk about yourself, if you're like trying to have a personal brand, talking about yourself and confidently speaking, getting a manager role, those kind of things. Mercury and Leo can help with that. The ability to do that. Yeah, and again, they'll help you see the bright side. They'll remind you what you can trust, what is solid, what is reliable. And they also do tend to speak in a way that naturally commands attention. So if you want to have a YouTube channel, if you want to have a podcast, if you want to be noticed for what you have to say in writing or in speaking, Mercury and Leo is generally quite good for this, although it's going to depend on what house it's in and stuff. But generally, you can use your words to get attention with Mercury and Leo. Now, sometimes that's, annoying, or it's like, think of a celebrity. But overall, even though I talked about some of the challenges here, I do really love Mercury and Leo because it has that warmth. It has a lot of warmth when it comes to how they talk. Okay, Mercury in Virgo. So Mercury in Virgo can talk in a humble way. Hold on, I have to check this. Because I wrote Jennifer Lawrence, but I want to see, did I really look up her chart? If she doesn't have that, I'm going to be mad at myself. No, yeah, she does. Okay, that's why I did that. Jennifer Lawrence has Mercury in Virgo on her midheaven. So it's like right there at the top of her chart. And she's the example for this because she really puts herself down, but she has a very self-deprecating sense of humor that really works and people love. But it's that sort of humility that whether she really is humble or not, she talks in a humble way. That's Mercury in Virgo. Mercury in Virgo, sometimes they want to help you come up with solutions. Because Virgo wants to be helpful, sometimes their reason for having a conversation is because they want to help you. They want to help you figure something out. They want to help you. They just want to help. Mercury and Virgo will share things they think could be useful. They can be good listeners, not always, but they can be. But the thing is, let's talk about for Mercury and Virgo, because I don't have as many notes on this. When Mercury's in Virgo, it's in its sign of exaltation, which means this is the best place for Mercury to do Mercury stuff. Remember that just means what does Mercury do? Well, it sells, it speaks, it gets its point across, it listens and understands. And Mercury is more the organized side of communication, not the meaningful side, right? So Jupiter, the opposite sign, the opposite planet to Mercury in the sense of, Gemini is opposite Sagittarius, Virgo is opposite Pisces. Jupiter is all about the feeling you get when you hear a speech. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. It's like we're listening to a sermon. We're listening to a meaningful, deep, felt thing that has to do with beliefs. Mercury in Virgo is the facts. It's the things that can be proven. It's the bullet points. It's the checklists. It's the spreadsheets. It's the organized file cabinet. So Mercury in Virgo can do well at Mercury things like organizing, like having 3 points you wanted to say in a conversation, getting to all 3 of them, staying on track. running a business meeting, those kind of things. Okay, hold on. We're getting some weird ass comments today. All right. So, what else for Mercury and Virgo? I think of how Virgo is the earth sign, so it slows Mercury down. So Mercury can move slow enough that it can focus on the details. And that is one of the reasons I think that Mercury does so well here, is that when we get Mercury in other signs, sometimes your mind moves so fast or you get bored easily and you don't want to sit there and focus on the thing that needs to be focused on. So I would trust like a Mercury and Virgo person to finish the task, to, kind of be thorough, have the patience to be thorough when it comes to speaking and communicating and their plans that they're making. And also because Virgo is a feminine sign, Mercury in Virgo is going to be more receptive. This is another reason why I think Mercury in Virgo is a little bit better. It's exalted, whereas Mercury in Gemini is not, is because Mercury in Gemini is just going to tell everyone all the things. That's not a bad thing. But when you can first listen and then speak, you're in a better position. You're in a better position to say what actually needs to be said. If you can hear what the other person is saying before you offer a perspective. So those are some of my thoughts on Mercury and Virgo. Feel free to share Mercury and Virgos if that resonated. It looks like Colin Sick is saying, can be a trickster. I'm Mercury and Virgo. I can talk my way into and out of anything. Yes. Thanks for mentioning that. I think Gemini is going to get the same kind of benefit to Mercury being there, of being able to be a smooth talker and to kind of charm people into letting you off the hook. Or that's kind of one of the significations of Mercury, is that using a communication to fool people, to trick people, to finagle your way out of things. All right, we're going to the next Mercury, which is Libra. So Mercury in Libra is interesting. Now, I'm not trying to hate on Libras, but I've noticed Libra, when I first started learning astrology, I would just think anything in Libra was good because it's about partnership. But that has not been my experience with any Libra placements of anyone I've ever met. My experience with Mercury in Libra is that sometimes they will be really diplomatic and they'll find out where you stand before they state their opinion. Sometimes they want to speak to maintain balance. Sometimes they'll say really nice things, but it can go the totally other direction. Sometimes for Mercury and Libra, where they are speaking to cut you down, right? Because the Mercury in Libra is like the sign of the scales. So if they think you're up here and you should be down here for whatever reason in their own mind, they will be so happy to cut you down. So my experience of people with Mercury and Libra is they'll tell you the other side of the argument. When you say something, they're going to tell you the other person's point of view, which is not always, it can be kind of more argumentative. So just because they're speaking to maintain balance doesn't mean it has a balancing effect. This isn't Cancer where they're trying to make you comfortable. This is Mercury in Libra where they want the scales to be even. They want, if you are talking about someone who is, let me think. Let's say they're conservative and you're talking about something liberal. They're going to come in and just hammer on you to try to balance that out, because if they're conservative, for example. So Mercury in Libra can be very argumentative. They can be, I'm trying not to be so mean, you guys, but it's like that contrary nature. So another thing about Mercury in Libra is sometimes they will ask you what you think so they can argue with you. They will ask you what you think so they can provide the other opinion, the balancing opinion to what you think sometimes. Now, other times Mercury and Libra will find out how everyone feels so that they can make sure not to rock the boat. So it really depends on the personality sometimes they don't want to rock the boat. And so this is what's so interesting about Libra, is that they don't want to rock the boat, but then they'll do things that are very contrarian. I have seen Libra placements actually say things that are quite mean and demeaning if they feel insecure. There's nothing worse than an insecure Libra. Also, Mercury in Libra will want conversations to be fair. And to be fair is going to be that they got their like 2 cents in, but also it's just the idea of fairness is so important to Libra that sometimes it's like they'll be scorekeeping a little bit sometimes. Like they'll be like, well, you talked most of the time for 3 conversations, so this time I'm going to. Or, things like that where people aren't usually keeping score like that, but the Libra person is. So sometimes there can be things like that happening with Mercury and Libra. Sometimes they're not going to want to voice unpleasant truths, but other times they're going to want to play the devil's advocate and like just get in there and be contrary. Sometimes they will ask you your thoughts so that they can do the opposite. Sometimes with a Mercury in Libra, if you want to go out to eat with them, you just have to give them an option for them to argue with. I'm serious. And I'm not trying to be mean to those of you who have this placement, but some of you just need, because of that need for balance, it's like it functions better when you have a thing to balance against. And so if a Mercury in Libra asks you what shirt to wear, just know they're probably not going to wear whatever one you say. They just need an original thing to be able to argue with or to be able to go against. They need something to go against, if that makes sense. Because there's sort of this self-defining through the other. And so sometimes you're going to see Libra be very contrary like that because they're going to define themselves as how they are not like you. But they need that contrast to be able to do so. Let me think about good things about this one. Mercury and Libra can actually be quite good at making conversations, starting conversations, making friends, or for also like networking, right? So this is one of the good sides of this placement because Mercury is in a masculine air sign, right? Why do I feel like that's wrong? Yes, all air signs are masculine. So it's masculine, it's air, and it's cardinal. So it's going to start conversations. Mercury in Libra is going to be someone who can go out and make connections to people. And even though, I said earlier, Mercury in Cancer is speaking to connect. Mercury in Libra is speaking to have a conversation almost. Does that make sense? Whereas like Gemini is going to speak to inform. Aries is going to speak to get shit done. Sagittarius is going to speak to inspire and motivate and uplift. Mercury in Leo is going to speak to like bring you up and like lift you up. Mercury in Libra is going to speak to have a conversation. Like that's the back and forth. Not like Gemini. Mercury and Gemini will speak to get you to hear what you have to say about their idea, but it's all about them. It's all about their idea. Mercury in Libra is going to speak to have the conversation, to have the experience of being in a conversation with another person. So Chris is saying we want to be seen as intelligent people, but are at first very naive. All right. Let's go on now to the next one, which is Scorpio. Okay, so Mercury in Scorpio can be deep thinkers. They can also be not easily lied to because they're going to know what's below the surface. They're going to know if you're lying to them. They're going to have the desire to expose that lie and put the screws on you and put some pressure on you, to be honest. They are going to want to help you see beyond the obvious in a situation. A Mercury in Scorpio who loves you or cares about you are going to help you see the other person's hidden motives. That is what they will be very, very good at. And they will want to almost help you to purge or purify using their words. Now, that may have the effect of doing that or not, depending on a lot of things. But Mercury in Scorpio is not someone you really want to try to lie to because they're going to know and they are going to do everything they can to expose the fact that you are lying, and they are not going to like it. Because people with Scorpio placements do not like it when the energy and the facade are totally different. If you're going to be fake nice, do not be fake nice to a Mercury in Scorpio. They are just going to look at you like they want to kill you. Which is another Scorpio trait. They will easily detect the cracks in your story, and it's almost like they'll put a crowbar in that crack and just open it up. They are kind of more probing, more slow, not slow like dumb, but like they'll just take the time to think about a thing. Mercury and Scorpio, sometimes they're good at detective work. Other times they are just people who know what's up. You know what I mean? The people you can't get shit past. Sometimes they'll be good at research. Sometimes that Scorpio energy of taboo topics like sexuality or serial killers or death or, things that are just more dark. Sometimes they like to learn about that stuff or watch TVs about that stuff. They might also be good at not revealing everything, right? Mercury in Scorpio Scorpio has a bit of a hidden nature to it. So Mercury in Scorpio is going to kind of either be prone to keeping certain shit to themselves, or they're going to hide things, or they're going to just not always reveal all their hand, right? So they're not going to reveal their position, or they're not going to reveal their strategy on something. They might know what not to say. Does that make sense? They might know, because Scorpio has that tendency of self-protection and strategy. So with Mercury in that sign, they're going to speak in a way that is self-protecting, and they're going to have a strategy with what they have to say. Now, that doesn't mean like every conversation is a strategy and you're just part of it, but that maybe they have if they have something they want you to understand, they might have a long-term strategy to deal with it. Does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to think of something. If the Mercury in Scorpio wants you to understand that, I can't think of anything specific, but they might say a little thing now and then say a little thing again later. And they might just be aware that they can't say it all at once. You're not going to get it. So they'll work on you. Does that make sense? They'll sort of erode you over time without you even knowing that you got eroded. They also do have that sort of scorpionic, like, almost ability to kind of like drill into your head, if that makes sense, psychically. That can be, and I'm not saying they're really going to do that, but like they can almost do that. They can almost like have very, very strong penetrating minds. And if they want to get information out of you, they can. Sometimes a Mercury in Scorpio, if they're mad at you, they can wait for the exact right moment to say something very, very mean, or they can wait for the exact right moment to like strike. That's a trait we see in Scorpio in general, is like knowing for the moment to strike. So this can work like for someone in their workplace, for example, like they know when to ask for a raise, or they know when to say the thing to get their other coworker in trouble, if that's what they want to do. Now, they're not always going to want to do that. It just depends. But Mercury and Scorpio can be very strategic in how they think and how they plan and how they communicate. And so I can see these people as having a high level of patience when it comes to their plans. Like, I don't know, let's say they work in a job and they know that they have 5 years in this job until the other person ahead of them leaves. They'll know that, and they'll see that they can't get away with certain things until then, or that they can't really step into a certain role, or, you know, they'll have sort of a strategic awareness of all things. Okay, we're not Jeannie, I'm not trying to drag people too bad. Although I think I got Mercury Libra pretty good. Jeannie's saying she thinks Scorpio and Mercury are blackmailers. I could see that with Libra Mercury as well too. But yeah, you really kind of don't want to mess with people with Scorpio placements, because they, not only will they mess back, but you won't see them coming. You will not see them coming. They're a few steps ahead of you usually. But I do think Mercury and Scorpio, it can be very good for research, for detective work, for knowing what's up. Those are going to be the key positive words. Now we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be a Mercury and Sag. This is my own placement, so I will probably talk longer about it, which is just the spirit of Mercury and Sag anyway. So Mercury in Sagittarius, this is not the best place for Mercury. Remember, that doesn't mean Mercury and Sagittarius are bad, or they can't communicate, or they can't think. It means that they're not as good as doing Mercury stuff, which is like being organized and making sense. I'm saying that about myself. Like having a linear way of thinking, an organized way of doing things. We're going to see more messy thinking with Mercury and Sag and Mercury and Pisces. Now, one of the things I always use this example to talk about dignities and abilities, which is like in traditional astrology, you're going to hear that like this planet does well in this sign, this planet is at fault or in detriment in this sign. So because Mercury is opposite Gemini, Gemini is a sign that Mercury is in its rulership, its domicile, its home. That means it's at fall in Sagittarius. I always get these wrong. Hold on. Mercury at fall, detriment. There's a difference, and I always have to look up the word. Yeah, it's at fall and detriment in Pisces, but I think it's just at fall in Sagittarius. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, I don't want to waste too much time on this. Anyway, the point is it doesn't do as well in Sag or Pisces. Why? Because Mercury can't think straight in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. It's go big or go home, baby. So what does this mean? It means you got to make sure they're not full of shit. Because they will tell you stories about how they went fishing and they caught the biggest fucking fish in the whole world and was like 2 pounds. You know what I mean? Like Mercury and Sagittarius will straight up exaggerate. Now, if you know them and you know they're exaggerating, it's fine. But sometimes I find people take it seriously. I'm like, shut up. Of course I'm not being serious. But you have to make sure the person knows you are exaggerating. Otherwise they will get pissed. Now there's a tendency to distort the facts here because of that bigness of Sagittarius, of that Jupiter's going to expand a thing. So you know, I'll be like, there was 1 million people at the park and there were like 5 or 20. You know what I mean? It's like that, where there's this larger than life feeling that comes through the speech. So this can show up for different people in different ways. Some people are going to learn different languages. Some people are going to do impersonations. Some people will enjoy talking to foreigners, and they'll want to, they'll like accents, or they'll like talking to people from other cultures or learning about the world. They care about the big picture. Mercury in Sagittarius is a big picture thinker. So like, it's going to annoy them if you only tell them the details. Okay, so example, I have lots of examples for this one because it's mine. If I'm driving and the person doesn't tell me where we're going, but they just tell me the next step, I get fucking pissed because I want to see the whole big picture. And then from the big picture, I can figure out the details. It's like, and this is the problem with Mercury and Sagittarius sometimes, is that you look at the big picture, but you don't see the details. So sometimes you miss something necessary for the next step that someone with Mercury somewhere else would have got or focused on, right? You can gloss over the details with Mercury and Sagittarius. It doesn't mean you can't work with them, but that sometimes your mind doesn't feel like focusing. It's like hard to focus on details too much because the mind doesn't want to do that. It wants to like talk about the big plan or the big next step or what's possible, you know, the Jupiter energy of like how anything is possible. And so depending on how this shows up for the person, right, this can get you in trouble when you have Mercury and Sag, because you can end up like hyping someone up too much for something that isn't that good, right? Like recommending a movie and being like, it was the best movie ever. And they're like, it was regular. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the challenge with Mercury and Sag, is that if you get excited and you have that bigness of speech, to make sure it's really not to where the person is going to be like, oh, you lied to me. Sometimes Mercury and Sagittarius can be blunt, another fire sign. They also value freedom and honesty. So this is another one people say about Mercury and Sag, is that they're going to put their foot in their mouth, but you don't always feel that. And the thing is, like, sometimes I've said things in the past that really offended people, but I never felt bad about it. I'm making this look so bad, but the whole foot and mouth, like you said something you shouldn't have said, and it's like, that does happen with this one. It really does. And they prefer, though, straightforward people, and they don't like indirect communication as much. Even though Sagittarius can tell you a story, and they might ramble themselves, but they will not have the patience to follow your 20-minute story that you could have when they need the information and they just want a straight answer. They will not appreciate fake nice. They will not appreciate that. They just want to know what's really going on. So Mercury in Sagittarius is going to appreciate the truth more. Even if it's an unpleasant truth, than just being BS'd with and like lied to and manipulated. I think Mercury in Capricorn is probably going to be similar on that aspect. But Mercury in Sagittarius is a truth seeker. So this is why they don't like that indirect communication, because they don't care how it feels. Like, they want to know, they do care how things feel, but they want to know what's really going on. They will communicate to express the truth about what is right or wrong. They might like telling stories or adventures of things that they've learned. They might like talking about stuff they know. You know, this could get annoying sometimes. They can be preachy and will talk about their ideals. And one of the challenges for Mercury and Sagittarius is they don't always live up to the ideal way that they think life should be. Now, also, they can get sidetracked in conversations. Sometimes they can get spaced out and just like not want to focus all the time. I talked about how they can gloss over details or not like them. Sometimes they're more focused on what's happening next than what's happening now. This is like a general Sagittarius challenge, is like putting so much stock in the future that they miss the next step. right? Because it's the archer with the bow and arrow, and that bow and arrow is focusing out into the future. They're focusing out into that next step. They're looking at the bullseye, but they're not seeing how to get there. So sometimes they can connect with like how great and grand the future is going to be, or the mission, but sometimes they will have a harder time figuring out what the next step is to reach the mission, just depending. Now, yeah, and then, this is one where there is a potential to kind of offend people, because you're really focused with Mercury and Sagittarius on the ultimate truth, the deeper, meaningful truth, but there's not as much focus in communication, in everyday communication. Does the other person even want to hear that? Is the person even interested in that? Sometimes Mercury and Sag can get sort of a little bit too detached from the connection, and be less concerned about, or not concerned enough about what the person needs to hear, right? Because that would be Mercury and Gemini. Mercury and Gemini is in your head and figuring out how you think and giving you the next indicated thing. So here's my example for this. That would be like if someone asks you for directions, and Mercury and Sagittarius will give them 5 or 10 ways to get there, because they want you to have freedom. They want you to have options. They want you to not be confined. The person asking for directions doesn't need 10 ways to get there. They need one way. They just need one set of directions. So this is where, Mercury and Sagittarius has to work, put in some effort to be able to keep in their mind what the other person in the conversation wants to hear right now. I'm not saying you have to tell people what they want to hear, but keep in mind, what are they really asking you for? Because you'll get kind of sidetracked and get into some deeper, meaningful thing and just go off on a tangent really easily. Okay, going on now to our next sign, which is Mercury in Capricorn. Mercury in Capricorn is also going to be a big picture thinker, just like Sagittarius, but in a different, very, very different way. Because Mercury in Sagittarius wants to do it in a freedom-loving, expansive way, but Mercury in Capricorn wants to think about the big picture in more of a confined and structured, restricted way, because Capricorn confines and restricts and follows the rules. So Mercury in Capricorn can be really, really good at creating a plan based on the current structure of the world or the organization or whatever they're involved in, creating that plan, and then kind of getting the understanding of the different components and how everything works before they put their plan into action. So planning is a very strong, I would say, positive quality of Mercury in Capricorn. The nature of the element Earth slows Mercury down, so stops it from being all over the place. And the Capricornian side of accomplishment and wanting to sacrifice and work hard makes that Mercury a more serious thinker. And they're going to communicate things that feel useful and don't waste time talking about trivial things that don't matter. They're really not going to like people who seem like they're talking nonsense. Mercury in Capricorn isn't going to like someone who's talking purely from their emotions. It's not even that they won't like them. They won't want to have those conversations where the person has nothing grounded to talk about and they're just off in the clouds. Mercury in Capricorn doesn't really know what to do with that. They want to talk about things that are useful, and they usually won't say anything unless they deem it important. Sometimes they will delay. They will delay something to make sure they are doing it right. So you can see this with Mercury, Saturn as well. Sometimes there is actually a fear of saying the wrong thing or getting it wrong, getting the answer wrong. So you might see someone with Mercury in Capricorn taking more time in the beginning to make sure they are doing something right, to make sure they are not wrong, right? Because like Saturn rules problems and things that are wrong. Capricorn is all about, it's not about things that are wrong, but it's like punishment and consequences. So Mercury in Capricorn is aware of the consequences for what they have to say. Okay, hold on. Okay, so back to what I was saying about Mercury and Capricorn. Yeah, they're going to communicate things that feel useful. They're going to have more of an awareness of something that's a problem. Because wherever you have Capricorn, you just will. You'll be more aware of the problems in that area of life. So they're going to be more aware if they say something wrong, or if there's something about how they talk that they feel is problematic. They're just going to have more awareness about that. And which means they're going to be more careful. Okay, that's kind of the point I've just been trying to make this whole time. Mercury and Capricorn are careful, cautious speakers. They are not wild and crazy speakers. They're deliberate in what they have to say. They might not say much, but the very few things they do say are going to be very important things. They won't speak unless they think that what they have to say is important, and unless they are sure that they're not getting it wrong. Mercury and Capricorn, when it comes to learning, they can take in information really slowly. Sometimes they hit a wall and they need to recoup before they can start again because of that cardinal nature of Capricorn. They can achieve a higher level of understanding, but they have to take that information in slowly over time. They can appear very, very confident when they talk. They can speak like what they have to say is the word of God. They can just be, because Saturn is so heavy, right? It's almost like their words have weight to them. Mercury in Capricorn tends to have a very realistic view of the world. They tend to see things how they are. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to like people who sugarcoat things. They're going to want to speak the truth. They're going to want to, they might even enjoy, some Mercury and Capricorns might even enjoy talking about things that are more morbid or that are more bad. They might like talking about what's wrong. And if you ask a Mercury and Capricorn how they're doing, they might tell you about a challenge they're solving right now. Because their thinking is just more oriented toward, this is the mountain I'm climbing. And now this could come across in more of a pessimistic way, right? Where they're like Eeyore, and every time you talk to them, it's like, thanks for noticing, But like Mercury and Capricorn can be really trustworthy with what they have to say because of their tendency to not speak unless they really, really, really feel like an expert on something. And then their additional tendency to kind of speak as if what they have to say carries a lot of weight because they take their words seriously. Since they take their words seriously, other people are going to take their words seriously too. All right, let's go on now to Mercury in Aquarius. All right, Mercury in Aquarius is also in traditional astrology going to be Saturn ruled. But it's a little bit different because whereas Mercury in Capricorn's actually feminine, right? It's about taking in all the information and getting it right and using it to accomplish something. Mercury in Aquarius is about, maybe there's some taking in information there too, but it's to make the world better, to improve society, or, sometimes there's an outsider feeling with planets that are in Aquarius because they're cast out of the castle, kind of. So what does that mean? Well, Mercury in Aquarius can have an internal set of rules that they go by. They can speak in a way that has no emotion because they're in a Saturn-ruled air sign, so it's really dry. And so they can just talk like these are the facts. They could be more interested, similar to Mercury and Gemini. They can be more interested in accuracy than feelings because of that air sign nature. But the difference between Mercury in Gemini versus Libra versus Aquarius, Mercury in Gemini is speaking to one person or sometimes a group of people to have discourse because they want to kind of mentally chew on the thing. Mercury in Libra is speaking to make a relationship. They want to be your friend, they want to be your business partner, or they want to be your devil's advocate. Mercury in Aquarius is speaking to inform the whole world about something or to take universal concepts and share them, that kind of thing. So because of that, it's like Mercury in Aquarius can be a little bit more aloof and detached though, because that air doesn't have, all of the air signs don't have the emotional quality, but it's like Aquarius is such an interesting sign to me because it's like, I want to help you, but I don't want to have to be next to you. That's kind of how Aquarius is. So it's like they want to talk to you from afar. They want to talk to you long distance. They want to educate you from this cold desk, or they want to write a story from like a laboratory where, it's like there's a very interesting kind of lack of connection, but also connection going on with Aquarius. So sometimes Mercury in Aquarius will speak in an emotionless way. And I think of someone who is like, sometimes there's a I know better kind of attitude with Aquarius energy that Mercury can definitely express through where it's like, let me teach you this. Let me educate you on this. Let me tell you why this person who's complaining is actually stupider than I am. Sometimes we see this with Aquarius, especially because of it's a fixed sign. So it's an air sign. So this Mercury really cares about what they know, but their opinions are fixed. So it's not about, Mercury in Gemini, which is going to be more about getting it back and forth, or even Libra, talking back and forth. It's about, this is what I know. Here you go. Do not question me, you fools. If anyone has Mercury in Aquarius, let me know if you feel like this lands. Hopefully I'm not dragging you guys too bad, but Mercury in Aquarius will be oriented toward talking about solutions, whereas the Mercury in Capricorn, even though it's also Saturn ruled, is going to talk about the problem. Mercury in Aquarius is going to talk about how to solve the problem, what the solution is, what would make the world a better place, what's going to improve things, how things are going to be more efficient, like solution oriented. Now, this could be, because it's in an emotionless way, it might not be warm and fuzzy. It might be a lawyer who teaches you how to get out of a domestic situation through just giving you the facts. Here you go, do this, do this, do this. And it's not like they don't have compassion, but they're not warm and fuzzy. They usually care a lot though, because it's Aquarius. They want to help everyone. They want to help the world be a better place. Sometimes they're going to want to talk about solving the world's problems or what needs to be improved in society. They're going to gravitate toward, if they were driving and there's road work, their mind might go straight to how the city could improve that problem. And that might be what they say when they see you, when they meet you for lunch, is like, this city needs to fix their traffic situation or something. Okay, but Mercury in Aquarius is usually going to really care about making your life better, or might have a solution to help you solve something. So let's go on now to Mercury in Pisces. For Mercury in Pisces, I love this placement so much, but I think these ones can be misunderstood. Mercury in Pisces will talk in a metaphor. This is the person who will say, yesterday I just got hit by this wave. And you're like, what? And they just mean they had a feeling, they're just saying they felt a feeling. And it's like everything with Mercury and Pisces is a metaphor. And they really speak, they have this genius actually for using metaphor, storytelling. These are the artists, these are the storytellers, these are people who are very poetic often. Especially if Mercury is near 4 degrees of Pisces, there is a fixed star there that really infuses that Mercury with more, even more like poetry. But who do you want to run your business meeting? Not the poet. So as much as they can be beautiful artists and kind of get lost in another world and take you on a ride in a story, and they're going to speak from how they feel in the moment. Now, this can get them in trouble. Mercury and Pisces can get in trouble for this because feelings aren't facts. And the person who wanted information out of you is now leaving without the information they wanted. Or worse, they're leaving with the wrong information because you didn't say I feel before you said the thing. So this would be like the big challenge for Mercury and Pisces, because Mercury's ability to like speak from how things really are, or to say what actually happened, is not strong. And I can tell you this for clients who I have with this. Sometimes I have to ask them the same question a couple of times if I want a fact, right? So I'll be like, well, I'm trying to ask a Mercury and Pisces what was happening in their life at a certain time. It's going to be like pulling teeth because they're going to tell me how they felt. And I'm like, no, what were you doing in your job at that time, right? So this is the challenge for the people who have Mercury and Pisces around them, is like, because the Mercury and Pisces is so in their feelings when they're talking, that the thing is, it doesn't mean you can't speak facts if you have Mercury and Pisces. You just have to try really hard, right? Because that Mercury isn't going to help you. Mercury and Pisces is going to help you as a person to get lost in a story, to be emotional, and to be empathetic, to have compassion, to listen to others, and there's a real beauty of Mercury and Pisces, though, to reflect. Because you can tell Mercury and Pisces something, like a story of what happened to you when you were young or something, and they will find little pieces of wisdom in that story that you didn't even know were there. So this is the beauty, one of the beautiful things about Mercury and Pisces. Now, sometimes they are going to feel like something's right or wrong, and they're just going to get a sense. They're just going to get a sense that they should plan it this way. They're going to plan things based on how they feel and their intuition. And this can be good because they might be on point, but they won't be able to tell you why. They won't always be able to articulate the reason why they're doing that thing. And sometimes if they're just planning based on emotions and that Piscean tendency to avoid challenge, well, this is where we can get ourselves in trouble. Anyone with Pisces, anything, is just swimming away from the conflict when what you really needed to do was stick with it, right? Because it's mutable water. Mercury's in mutable water. So I would say Mercury in Pisces is the last person I would ask to have a confronting conversation, because if they feel at all like the person's not going to receive it, they just will give up and not say the thing they were supposed to say. Like, I would not want a manager who has to give negative feedback to employees to have Mercury in Pisces, because they just won't do it. They'll say they did, and really they just avoided it or swam around it, right? There's that tendency to swim around things. Now, this can still be such a beautiful placement. Sometimes they will talk in metaphors. Again, they can be very incredible artists or storytellers, or just have a very poetic method of saying things. They may not remember facts, but they will remember how they felt when they learned something, or when you told them something. Now, this is where Mercury in Pisces gets itself in a little bit of trouble, because they remember the way they felt, but if they're not remembering the facts, this is where they can distort the facts a little bit, because they'll just remember how they felt about a thing, and that may or may not be exactly what was happening. Yeah, their answer to your question, if you ask a Mercury and Pisces a question, the same question, on different days, you're going to get a different answer depending on their mood. They're going to speak from how they feel that day. And okay, so you really have to pin them down again to get the facts. And this can be uncomfortable for them because they're the fish and they want to swim away. And it can also be uncomfortable for the other person because they're like, oh my God. It's like when you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, what does the doctor ask you? They'll ask you like, have you ever had a fainting spell? And the Mercury in Pisces is like, well, I thought I was going to do this one time, but then my aunt, made me feel better. And the doctor's like, what in the actual fuck? But the thing is, just because Mercury isn't good at doing Mercury stuff, like stating facts objectively and exactly and concisely, doesn't mean it's useless. Okay? Doesn't mean it's useless. Yeah, I don't think Carolyn's saying something here about, so that's what I have for Mercury and Pisces. Let's see though what Carolyn's saying. Carolyn's saying, I think it's sad Mercury and Gemini is automatically labeled as the liar. I think that anyone can lie. I've seen a lot of people without Mercury and Gemini lie. I've known a lot of Libras that were not very honest. And the thing is, any sign can lie. Any sign can lie. But I think Mercury in Gemini, if you want to lie, you can do it really well. And that's not saying you have to, but you could come up with a really good lie if you have Mercury in Gemini. And it doesn't mean everyone with that placement does, right? Because everybody is at a different level of consciousness, right? And so just because you are capable of getting someone on your side doesn't necessarily mean you're going to. Just be like, think about it. Really, really, really good looking people can probably manipulate a little bit easier, right? Because they can use their looks to just get people to do stuff for them. That does not mean every single beautiful person is lying and manipulating, right? It just means they could if they wanted to. And so Mercury in Gemini has the potential to trick people because it has the, it's capable of getting in someone's head. It's capable of it. But just because you are capable of a thing doesn't mean you're going to do that thing. And in astrology, one of the things that I think we have misconceptions that like this planet and this sign is bad, but sometimes those misconceptions show up for a reason. But I also think that it sucks because it's almost like, it's like you just don't know how that person's going to be until you meet them. Like, I know myself, and you guys let me know if you've had this happen. I have seen people with certain like moons or whatever that drive me fucking nuts. And then I've seen other people with the same moon that don't. So it's like, just because you have a certain thing doesn't mean you're bad. And sometimes whether you're going to be labeled as bad or good also depends on the synastry with the other person, right? So let's say we're just talking Mercury. We're just talking Mercury today. So do you think let's say we put a Mercury in Virgo and a Mercury in Pisces and try to make them be friends. Do you think they're going to get along? Maybe they'll love each other. Sometimes maybe the Mercury and Virgo person will love the Pisces stories and will laugh at them. Maybe the Mercury and Pisces person will be like, oh, I don't know how to organize this. And then the Mercury and Virgo is going to help them, right? Maybe they'll step in at the things that the other person isn't as good at and they'll work together. Or maybe they will fucking hate each other because there's the way that they approach things are so opposite that it's like, I do not get you. I know for myself, and let me know you guys in the comments if this is true for you, that understanding astrology has actually helped me understand people that before astrology I did not understand. I just didn't get them at all. And it doesn't make bad behavior bad. It's definitely helped me to see where people are coming from more. All right, I'm just going to go through some of the comments now. And for those who maybe missed the intro, today we did Mercury through the signs. In the upcoming videos, we will be doing Mercury through the houses, and we will be doing the moon through the signs. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you are so you get those notifications. Okay, so this is Rosella saying, sometimes I may jump to one subject to the next while telling a story with my Mercury and Pisces. Yep, that's totally a Mercury and Pisces and Mercury and Sag thing to do, is like interrupt yourself telling a story to say something else and then go back and circle back to it later. Okay, and then, yep, okay, Jeannie's saying the same thing. I'll cut myself off and forget what I was saying mid-sentence. It's ridiculous sometimes. Luckily, my friends already know. Oh, here we go. My best friend is a triple Virgo with Mercury and Virgo, and we love each other. I tell her I have nothing Virgo, so she completes me. What I'm missing, she fills in. She has the details. I got the big pic. Exactly. Like we can have these ways we complement each other. Thanks for sharing that. Josh D is saying, is Mercury in Pisces at 0 degrees mean anything special? I don't really work too much with the degrees, but I will say if you have a planet at 0, you can almost think of it like, I mean, you really can kind of think of it as like you're starting, there's a new beginning energy to the way that you communicate. It's almost like you're learning in this lifetime how to talk like a Pisces. It's not as familiar to you yet. There's sort of like a fresh start energy to it. Oh yeah, okay, so Rosella also says she loves having conversations with her Mercury and Virgo daughter. And she says maybe because my Mercury's in the 6th house. Yeah, maybe they are just complementary. Okay, so I think Margarzata said, okay, this might have to do with Scorpio, I think. I'm an ocean of patience, and I will wait till I say something that will kill you. You mean like emotionally? Yep. That's very, very Mercury in Scorpio. Oh, and Chris said earlier, as a Libra Mercury in the 8th, very scorpionic, obsessive thoughts, black and white. Writer 79 says Mercury in Leo, 12th house, and I'm a journalist. Very cool. Okay, so Christina said first she said Mercury in Cancer here, and then she says, true, that's how my communication sounds like. And Dulce earlier says, yep, we're the annoying friend that knows it all. People don't like that. I'm thinking that was about Mercury and Gemini. Okay, let's see if there's any new comments. Josh says for sure having my Chiron in the 3rd makes things fun as well. Ah, yes. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, Chiron is going to generally, Chiron in the 3rd or Chiron in Gemini is going to create some, you could say some blockages around communication with that. All right, guys. So what we did today was we went through Mercury through the different signs of the zodiac. I tried focusing on the ruling planet and the rulerships to give a bigger picture of kind of why this Mercury does what it does and functions the way that it functions. And Our next Mercury video is probably going to be my Mercury through the houses. So when Mercury does different things in the house than it does in the sign. So in the sign, it's like, remember, the planet is what, the sign is how, and the house is where. So while Mercury in the sign is going to tell you kind of how you speak, it's going to tell you a little bit about what you speak about, how you think, how you plan, how you learn. Mercury in the house is going to tell you a lot about what area of life you're meant to be more curious. Things are always going to be changing. You're going to be more restless. You're going to need more variety. You're going to have a natural craft or skill. You might wear different hats in that area of life. You might be persuasive or make deals maybe in that area of life if that fits. And sometimes you can be sly, because think about it, Mercury was the only planet that could actually go up to heaven and down to the underworld. So remember, Mercury is one of the traditional planets. So even though Pluto rules the underworld, all of the traditional planets rule the things that the modern planets rule. There's a traditional planet that rules that thing, because back when they only had through Saturn, those were all the visible planets. Those are all the visible planets before they had telescopes and shit. Then all of those planets reflect all of life. So because of that, Mercury also rules the underworld, and it rules astrology. It rules so many things. So make sure you check out the video on Mercury through the houses so that we can understand more about where that Mercury is going to show up in your life. I hope you guys have a wonderful, beautiful day, and I will see you beautiful souls in the next video. Bye, guys.